Hi there. It's January the 27th, and we continue our progress through the good news of Matthew. And we're in Matthew chapter 18, and we're reading verses 1 to 20. This actually is the beginning of the fourth of the 5 discourses or blocks of teaching that Jesus gives in Matthew. We said at the beginning that Matthew arranges his gospel having actions and then teachings of Jesus. So this is the fourth opening of the teachings of Jesus. It's sometimes called the church discourse because there's emphasis here. It's the only time actually in this chapter that Jesus uses the term church. But we're looking first of all at a question of power. Power is always one of the most difficult things to handle in the life of a church community. And so the disciples come to Jesus and they say, who's greatest? How do we get power? Who's the most powerful in the kingdom? And Jesus does something amazing, a stroke of genius. He brings a child into the middle. Now, a child is the most powerless person in world community. Has to be looked after, has to be cared for, isn't asked their opinion, usually doesn't have any responsibilities. And so Jesus puts this one in the middle and he says, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. And if you want to be if you want to be greatest in the kingdom, you have to become like one of these. And then Jesus goes on to speak about the child and about the importance, the care that needs to be taken, the concern that needs to be shown for a little one. And if anyone causes any of these little ones to be harmed or to sin, then it says it's better for them to have a millstone hung around their neck and be thrown into the sea. Jesus is pointing out that harming someone who seems to be powerless in the name of power is really frowned on, is really to be judged in his kingdom. And so he also then goes on to say, if your hand offends you, cut it off. If your eye offends you, pull it out. Now we know that Jesus isn't really saying that we have to cut off our hands and pull out our eyes in his kingdom. Otherwise there would have been reports in the New Testament of a lot of handless and eyeless people. But he's using what's called hyperbole. He's using an overstatement to kind of shock us and say, wow, this is really serious, and to show the seriousness of offence, particularly offence against children, because he says these little ones actually have angels before the Father's face, and he cares about them. And then Jesus says something about those who are far away from him. He says, my Father doesn't want anyone to perish. He isn't willing even for one little child to be lost. You can't overlook even the powerless people in his community. And he says, actually, if there are 99 sheep and one goes astray, then the shepherd, the Father, goes after that one, because he values that one. He rejoices more than all the 99 righteous. And therefore Jesus is just making clear that in our community, in our churches, it's not about power. And then latterly in this reading, Jesus talks about the importance of harmony and of unity. And he says if one sees another walking in a way that is not going to be beneficial to them or interfere with their relationship with God or the life of the community, they're to go on a one-to-one basis and to speak to them. They're to bring up the problems. Conflict is not to be avoided in a church community. It's to be faced in love. But if that person refuses to hear, then they have to take it to another couple of people, because it should be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, it says in the Hebrew scriptures. And therefore, if they won't listen to them, then it comes to the whole community, to what Jesus calls the ecclesia. Now, the ecclesia, in Jesus' mind, is really a continuation of the gathering, of the community, of the assembled multitude of people. And he says, and they should treat him, if he will not listen to them, then he should be treated like an unbeliever. Now that doesn't mean he should be thrown out and have nothing to do with and excommunicated. That's not what Jesus is saying. That he should be treated as one who needs to be re-educated in the gospel, who needs to be brought back into the community again gently, but actually does need to be treated as one who doesn't have a full grasp on the kingdom of God. And then finally, Jesus talks about the power of the community coming together, even the 2 or 3 who come together. He says, if 2 of you agree on anything in my name, it will be done for you, because you have the power to open and to shut things in the kingdom of heaven. And this is an exciting fact when we realize that God is giving us authority, not authority to hold sway and to hold power over people, but actually authority to ask God to release his kingdom on heaven. It has on earth. It has to be done in in harmony with his desire and with his will. We certainly have a powerful instrument in prayer to be able to approach God, and we can continue to use that day by day. So let's not be afraid to draw close to our Father and to see him bring amazing things to pass in the earth. Have a very good January 27th.